I'm getting to meet two people in a row who are from Missouri, and both
It's your lucky week.
are involved in foundations helping children. And I think that's admirable, and I can only imagine how much more appreciative you are when you come back from places like that, and when you come back to America and see the blessings that we've got and the things we may take for granted. So tell me a little bit about your foundation, how it was started, the name of it, and educate us, because we want to get involved and we want our listeners to get involved.
So, World Refugee School.
Yeah.
We are a 501c3 organization operating in multiple countries. Our mission is to educate the world's displaced youth. So, there are over 80 million refugees across the world, and over half of those refugees are children. And what people don't understand or haven't appreciated yet is that most kids are in a refugee camp 17 years. And so that is taking up, the duration of their schooling. So we're really focused on providing not only, we're not providing traditional education, rather we're giving the infrastructure and putting infrastructure into these camps and organizations to provide kids with quality education by certified professionals in a variety of means. So no programs look the same across multiple camps.
That's amazing. And how did this whole thing start? Like, where did the thought come from, and who are the folks behind this whole idea? Because it's admirable. Again, yesterday I spent some time with Kyle, and I happened to be at a place called the Brian Jordan Foundation, where he teaches children in literacy. And I learned a statistic that really kind of, it was scary. And at the same time, but scary, but very informative. And it actually inspired me to want to get involved with foundations like yourself, like World Refugee, and really help children. There's a statistic that if by third grade, if you don't have some sort of literacy, you will end up in prison. And that's how we grow our prisons in other countries as well. And I had no idea. Mm-hmm. And I learned that. And I got to watch this pretty young girl that had just graduated from University of Georgia. She was first person to graduate from her class in UGA. And she was a part of that other foundation. And that foundation gave her an opportunity to be the first person to graduate from college in her classroom. She works for Coca-Cola now. She's educated. She's going to have a family one day, and she's going to live the life. She's going to live the American dream. And I can only see what you guys are trying to do in different parts of the country. So it's, I don't think it's a coincidence I'm having this conversation with you today.
Absolutely, and thank you for recognizing that statistic. I mean, many refer to it as the school to prison pipeline. And if we don't give kids the education that they need early on, then it's just, they're not set up for success. And so there are a lot of negative alternatives. So really what we're trying to do, and one of the cool things about our programming at World Refugee School is that it's accredited. So, we're not just, many displaced youth are enrolled in education programs that have no accreditation. So they may actually be receiving education, but there's no paperwork, there's no trail. And we know the transient nature of being a refugee. We have to give them something that they can take with them that proves their education. So our programs are accredited by City and Guilds, which is really extraordinary that we're able to not just provide the education, but provide that piece of paper that allows them to then go on and do whatever they want, having proven that they have a legitimate quality education behind them.
I mean, and where are these schools located?
They are all over. So we have many schools in Jordan.
Wow.
We have, and that was secondary to the Syrian refugee crisis. We're working with several different countries in Africa. Kirk would be able to name exactly where we are, but what we do is we kind of respond where the need is. So we look at other partnered organizations and people doing really good work, but maybe they need infrastructure or they need technology or connectivity in the areas where they're doing the work. And that's where World Refugee School can come in and be that technical partner. Or we even have mobile schools, which are vans that we can drive, mobile classrooms that allow us to be to pick up these schools and drive, because the reality is that there are you don't know what the situation is, how it's going to unfold, and we have to be responsive and mobile. And we actually do have mobile classrooms, so totally connected, all the technology, and we, are working with the local government agencies to bring their curriculum into our platform. So there's a lot going on that allows us to really serve students.
That's amazing. I know Kirk mentioned before we started that, unfortunately, some of these places are war zones, and these kids are literally under attack. And I can't even fathom the thought of having to run from a bomb, right, and get in a mobile vehicle and say, okay, well, school's going to start taking place, I don't know, X amount miles away. Which also leads me to another thought. I can only imagine the resiliency in these children and how special they are.
It's beautiful. And that was, you kind of alluded to at the beginning of our conversation, like not being the same when you come back from these camps. And I remember the first time I went with Kirk, one of our founders, to a camp 10 miles outside of the Syrian border, and I had never seen anything like it. And we were standing at the highest part of the camp, and just looking around, and it was overwhelming. And this little boy, he was probably 5 years old, came running up to us. And if you know Kirk, which you do, he's tall, he stands out in a crowd. And so this little boy came over and was so excited to see Kirk, and in a different language I didn't understand, but he said something along the lines of, "Hi, so nice to meet you." He held out his hand, he shook Kirk's hand, and he was so happy. And it was just, that was a moment that I really hold on to, because we have so much opportunity and privilege here. Living in the United States, that we have to use our privilege to create opportunity for those that don't have that same privilege. So that was something where I came back to the U.S. and just, for a couple of weeks, I just couldn't function in this.
No, I can only imagine how life-changing that can be. And maybe for that little boy at that one moment, that was his safe place. Was he saw you guys, he said, well, these people seem to have it put together, and maybe I'm safe here. Maybe. I can't imagine what goes through the mind of those kids, but I can tell you they're probably resilient and resourceful, and the world can use children like that, because, I will say that it saddens me sometimes to live in this country that is so privileged, and yet, yeah, we have our challenges, there's no doubt about it, but we're so way ahead of the game in comparison to what other people experience every single day. And I think it's through people like yourselves who go visit these countries and go provide these resources to from a humanitarian standpoint, right? To just, we're all humans and we're all trying to make the world a better place. I can only imagine how impactful it is. What's the future of World Refugee? What's the vision here? What's the end game?
We want to continue to partner with communities that are working to serve displaced and refugee children. So what we are doing is providing scalable infrastructure, and that's really important to us, because we don't want to be a program that just comes in and doesn't serve a purpose, doesn't help build up resources within the community. So that's been really important for us from day one, is we realized that we have to do all of this through technology, because that's the only way to really scale to meet the needs of the refugee community.
And when you say technology and when you to scale, what's an example? Like,
Sure. So, for example, think back to, let's say, being in elementary school. They put all the kids on the same program. You walk into class, you get the same curriculum, no matter, if you're advanced or falling behind. What we do is on our platform, before we begin working with students and serving students, they go through an adaptive assessment. So every student is evaluated through our platform to say, here's strengths and weaknesses, and then there's an individualized learning plan created for that child, that student, which is something that we don't do anything comparatively here in the U.S. We just blanket throw programs onto kids. So it's really cool not to only be able to meet this need of educating our youth worldwide, but to say we're doing it in a way that is unique to each individual student. And that's all because we can through the technology that's been developed over the past 2 decades.
wow,
So, yeah.
that's amazing. Kurt, what you guys are doing is pretty special, man.
It's unfortunately this industry is not going to is recession proof. There's going to always be refugees. So sadly, we're probably going to be at this forever, right?
I don't want to get into politics, right? But when we say the word refugees, like my parents were Cubans, right? They were exiles and immigrants. I mean, we were pushed out of Cuba. But no matter what, this country gave us an opportunity, and we all had to go reinvent ourselves, and my grandparents. And everything I have in my life today is because of their sacrifice. So, I can only imagine the fruit. You guys are laying down the seed for some of these kids to live the life they want to live, hopefully one day, which is to be free and to be entrepreneurs and to live life free. Because, at the end of the day, freedom is everything. And you guys are doing it in the opposite side of the world, where there's a lot of danger. There's a lot of, I would assume, tough political climate, and to execute what you guys are doing, I applaud you all, because that's tough. It takes determination. It takes grit. But above all, it seems like those kids are driving you all. You guys must have seen something. So,
how can you not be affected by that and want to try and do everything you can to bring good into the world?
Right when you think the world is such a dark place, there's a lot of good happening too. So, congrats, and we hope that our listeners help, and I definitely will try to help myself and encourage others to do so as well.
Thank you.
Emily.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.